So JD, it's a long time coming.
Long time coming, Pete.
Yeah, man. I'm so excited to have you here, man. You're one of the first people I thought about when I was getting excited about trying to do this podcast and getting out there, and just a story of absolute redemption. It's still a journey. You're still in your kind of overcoming things and like that. It's great to see you, and I love talking with you. And we kind of been on this together, for the last six and some odd years. So
let me just say that when I first heard that you were going to start putting something like this together, it did not surprise me at all. I mean, because knowing what I do about you, you're the perfect fit for the perfect type of carrier for these types of stories, But you've got just such that persona, This is the podcast persona.
This is good, man.
For sure. So, I mean, I can't see it going any other way. What a natural progression,
And now, that's my sponsor, JD, for the show. He's supposed to give me the hype, and I appreciate it, man. No, I'm thank you, man. I've done a couple of different theme podcasts, and actually, believe it or not, I had pot.com, and I did that, which is ironic. Didn't go very far. And then we did some other ones that were real estate based and business based and everything. I always really enjoyed it. My favorite was I did a sports show, like a local sports show, and just was so much fun. And it's some of the best times I've ever had. And I got to interview some really cool people. But as the last couple of years have gone by, I am obsessed with podcasts. Like if you said anything, I listen to that more than I'd listen to watch TV or anything else like that. So like podcasting is just like, I'm obsessed. And whether this goes anywhere or not, hopefully it does. Hopefully it touches some people's hearts and everything else like that. I just wanted to do it. I really enjoyed. I could talk about this stuff all day. My wife was like, you talk to your friends about all these things and personal development and everything all day long. You should try to do something with it. It's like you're talking, giving advice, you're taking advice, you love learning and everything else like that. So anyway, it's kind of a dream bucket list for me.
For sure. And just like with the sports, just like with everything else, there's a reason that, you talk so enthusiastically about it and you bring it, is because those things are dear to your heart. Just like, redemption, salvation, that type of stuff is very dear to both our hearts. I know that.
Both our hearts. And I also, that was another thing too, is by doing these and talking to people, it is literally like time stops for me. I love hearing people's stories. And I know for me, and especially as the world's got more crooked and a little bit more crazy. I'm human, so I'm drawn to some drama and everything else like that, and get caught up in politics, get caught up in all that stuff, just like everybody else. But movies, everything like that, it's like the Rudy movie, the stories of overcoming. I'm so drawn. I could listen to those all day long, and they never get boring to me.
Yeah.
And then thinking about this, it wasn't even just like, the other part of it is though, in listening to a lot of different podcasts was, I like David Goggins. I like some of these other people that are on there, but the big people, we hear their stories, and sometimes I can't even relate to them because they're such incredible feats, almost feel less than and everything else. And but I meet like so many awesome people that are, working a job, doing these things, doing great, doing these things, but like have a family just like me. And I get inspired by that.
I can guarantee you I'm not going to bring you any stories of running like a 50-mile marathon with a Lego in my shoe. All right. So there's no David Goggins overcoming.
But you could bring a story about a 10K. I know that for a fact.
Oh, absolutely. There's my crowning achievement.
And you crushed me on it. So I do know that one. You did a couple good gate runs. I can tell you that.
No doubt I can run, but it's not like the David Goggins.
Yeah. So JD, tell us a little bit about yourself and everything else, and a little background and how it all began.
Definitely. So, my name is JD. I was born in 1980, so I'm 45 years old now, and I don't really have much about my childhood that would have turned me into somebody who I truthfully overall became. In my early teens through my late teens, high school age, I started realizing that there was just something going on that I wasn't quite, thrilled with. I always felt less than. I was picked last for the sports teams. In fact, I walked right off my the softball field in my first game because I was just getting heckled by all the other by people on my team. I was getting heckled. I was just like, all right, I'm dumping this, dropped the bat and went right to my dad's truck and sat there till the game was over. I was over it, started hanging out with other kids that did the same stuff that I did. You know, I was a little bit of a graffiti artist. I thought I was a b-boy. I was rapping and, you know, break dancing.
Did you grow up in Colorado or Utah? Or
Yeah, Colorado.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, as you can imagine, the hip hop scene is just not thriving in rural Colorado. It's not.
I can see it as pretty big. The Rocky Mountain boys.
You got to be on the other side of the Rockies and Denver and all that. I was on the agricultural side, you know. So
hey, man, you got to break you got to break into a market.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, you know, my little crew, we brought it. You know,
I love it.
We were the boys. But what really happened is that you know, I started hanging out with kids that just weren't a great influence on me. And, you know, I started hanging out with kids that I knew I had influence over and really kind of manipulated that influence on them. And what ended up happening is that I just, you know, it drove so much of an ego in me. And I think that's kind of like what the catalyst of my overall soullessness and hopelessness was.
Do you ever think, and I know a little, so it's kind of cheating because I do know a little bit of, I know a lot about you actually because we talk a lot about it. I know you came from a pretty strict religious background.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And I know for myself with like some of my harder times, it's like you got this way to walk down a road, but then you also got this other side. You almost got that angel and the devil. I don't know if that was, I'm projecting a little bit, but did that have anything to do with it? Like
it did.
Influence?
And that's why I felt so hopeless is that by age 19, you know, I had experimented with all the alcohol, all the drugs. You know, I was definitely cultivating and acting on immoral, you know, ideas. And I think my parents recognized the need for me to be a little bit more focused on religion. And they took me in and they wanted me to be a missionary for my church, the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
And so growing up Mormon from age, you know, 1 to 18 in this church, my idea of God was nothing more than like what you said. You know, there was hell, you know, or there was eternal salvation. There was no in between. And every time I sought answers from the God that I was supposed to be praying to, it came up empty-handed. I never felt like I had an actual testimony of that church, but I lied all the way through it. And so here I am, age 19, ready to go on a mission. I've read the literature, the Book of Mormon. I've read the Bible. I'm baptizing people, you know, I'm doing all sorts of these sanctimonious things in the church, and I have absolutely no testimony of it. And so I told my bishop that, you know, right before the last interview, before you get shipped off to BYU to actually become a missionary, I told him, you know, here's the deal. I like to drink, you know, I've experimented with plenty of intoxicating substances, and, you know, I frequently act on immoral, you know, propositions. And his response was, well, then you're not going on a mission, you know. In fact, he demoted me in the church and sent me to a primary. So I'm teaching 3 and 4-year-olds in a primary class, you know, and typically hungover. So here I am, you know, 19 years old, almost 20 years old, just drinking every night and going to church feeling hungover and knowing that I'm doing all the wrong things. And that's when I was just pieced out, you know.
Do you think some of that's this? So this is another one that I've just been thinking a lot about this stuff. Like our ages, we're similar in age. I'm a little bit older than you, but our culture of that time though, man, like drinking and you know, even weed and other stuff, it was so ingrained in our age group. I mean, I don't care whether you're Mormon. I don't care if you're Catholic. I don't care. You live in the South, the Northeast. Cause I have friends and it's funny, you know, birds with a feather flock together. Like I went away to college, 1,200 miles. I found the exact same friends I grew up in Orlando. I grew up on Long Island before I moved to Lake Mary. And actually I've had situations where I've been able to bring everyone together and they're all really close friends. And we all had the same life. I had the same life in each one of those areas.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt.
With different backgrounds too.
No doubt. In fact, it's funny you mention our friend Bobby that you and I both know just had this conversation. The late 90s, early 2000s was such a time to be alive because honestly, back then,
it was before social media too.
Well, we didn't have those limitations of what we could and could not do to, you know, get the likes. So I wasn't doing this for anyone but myself.
No, it was almost sneaky. You know? You're almost like he didn't want anyone to know.
But the thing is that on a experimental level, I didn't have to worry about stuff like fentanyl and overdoses and stuff like that. It just wasn't there. So it really broadened the horizons of all the stuff that was brought to me to you know, experiment with. And I was like, oh man, you know, what a time to be alive.
But you know, my other theory is too, this is just theories that I just been like thinking about. I was like, you know, our parents, when you hear about like the good old days or anything else like that, like there's a lot of hard times, you know, like if you grew up in the 30s or 40s or the 20s, like the wealth in this country was not like it is, you know, not like it is today even, you know, like our kids have it a lot easier than when we had it, you know, but we had it in a time where like, it was kind of like good. Like I remember my parents literally having one car. And it was like I felt like we were broke. I remember using coupons for shoes. And then all of a sudden, like a couple of years later, like we'd moved to a nice house and like we had 2 cars. And then like, and it was like all my friends were it was the same. It was like something shifted, like the printing machine went on and everybody was doing, I don't know. But I feel like those pressures weren't the same for, you know, people are trying to figure out this new lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, TVs, cars, like all that stuff. I don't know. I just have those, you know, and there was a lot of freedom. Like it was like we were teenagers and everything, but we had a lot more freedom than what our kids had, and we didn't necessarily have to work as hard as probably what our parents, like facing the Vietnam War or whatnot, was.
Yeah, none of that.
You know,
I mean, I do remember there were some like critical economic hardships going on around the time. The boom and bust of the coal industry in the 1980s just annihilated my family, and so from a very early age, I had a real unhealthy relationship with money. And it's because I grew up, my dad was a physician, and in the town we lived in, you know, we had 2 vehicles, motorcycles, a boat, you know, nice stuff in the yard. And then the coal bust goes, and by the mid 80s, we're bankrupt. I mean, my parents filed bankruptcy.
My dad was a banker. My dad was a banker, and we had the highs of the highs, and then the banking, same time frame. I don't know if they're tied to each other. It was like 88,
it was
87.
Like nationwide, yeah.
Yeah, the banking and like all of a sudden it was totally, it was fights in our house. It was a big change for us.
Which is crazy that you mentioned that, because that's part of like why I carried with me in my early adolescence some of this guilt and shame, is because around that same time, I just remember waking up as an 8 and 9-year-old with knots in my stomach, hearing my parents fight over stuff. And that's the time I started realizing that there was addiction problems in my home. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that there was alcohol, and I knew that there was, you know, just really weird behavior that sometimes happened late at night and I would witness. And it was around that same time. So my relationship with money was really kind of indifferent. I didn't, you know, I knew what it
I understand that
a lot. I knew what it felt like to have nothing. And
me too.
You know,
the funny thing is, and I always say is like, I remember going through a phase where I was like ashamed that we had money because I played sports and I didn't want to be considered like a rich kid or whatever else it is. And then we lost it all. And it was tough. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never.
Yeah, you don't.
It's like that gratitude. Like you're like, wow, if I ever have it again, I am going to be so thankful.
Yeah,
you know.
Like, lucky for me, when we really went through a hardship, my dad actually he was unemployed for a year. I mean, and as a doctor in a rural town of 2,000 people, you only really need 1 or 2 doctors, and he was the one who got let go. So he left and found a place for us to live in a new job over the mountain where I actually grew up. It's called Grand Junction. And so my 6th grade year, I got to start middle school in a whole new place, and I truly reinvented myself. And that for me was like, probably looking back, more devastating, because I turned into this kid that was like, nobody knew. I already had my ears pierced. I was already super cool. So I just made up this backstory, you know. Oh, I'm from, you know, so-and-so little town, but yeah, we're not all hicks out there. Like, I'm the real deal, you know, and, you know, see my Motley Crue t-shirt and I dye my hair. My parents are cool like that. And then a kid offers me a cigarette and I'm like, I never smoked. Why would I smoke? Oh yeah, we smoke. Yeah, for sure. You know? And so I started like sneaking cigs and I hated every minute of it, but I did whatever it took to fit in. And, a lot of that, I kind of see the patterns now, because even in church, you know, I was too afraid to say I'm not this, but I did whatever it took to fit in, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a lot of like where this empty feeling came from, is that I didn't know how to stand up for myself. You know, I didn't know a boundary was there to be set, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a rough way to live.
Yeah. It's weird. So you carried an empty feeling into your adulthood from that?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And I projected that emptiness onto others around me, because at age 21, you know, I dropped out of college, you know. At that point, I was probably what you would consider a full-blown alcoholic. I had a very bad relationship with alcohol early on. Age 17 and 18 were just like
Was it any other things, just alcohol, or was it
I mean, experimenting here
pharmaceuticals
and there, you know. I mean, in my early days of drinking and partying, you know, pass me a joint, sure, you know, you'd take a tab of something, whatever, and just feel the effects all weekend long, and it was just crazy. But you know, I'd hide that from my parents. There's no way I want them to know what I'm up
Yeah.
to. When I moved to Denver after dropping out of college, that was when I just cut ties with everybody. I remember the day I took $1,300 worth of books from college, and instead of taking them back to the library and trying to get some money back, took them out to the desert and blew holes in them with a 16 gauge shotgun. Me and my buddy.
That's
And
for fun?
just for fun, because I was that was my I'm over this.
I'm out of college.
Peacing out. I'm done. And I came home and my dad said, I got a call from the dean today. Said you withdrew from all your classes.
Ugh.
And I was like, yeah, like I was failing anyways. And he's like, well, that's great. I'm not paying your tuition. You know, where's your books? I was like, in 13,000 small pieces out in the desert. Like, what's a 2-year-old man? You know, just such a chip on my shoulder. So
the dad of the doctor probably was not happy about the educational choices.
His only advice to me was do what makes you happy. And I took that the wrong way. You know, I was doing what made me happy, you know, inconsequentially, I was happy. So, but yeah, you know, in Denver is definitely where some of that more radical experimentation took off. And I was out there for, you know, about 2 or 3 years, just, you know, kind of cheating away every good opportunity I had ever had. You know, at that point, it was year 2000. I'd only ever made like probably $12 an hour at that point. And so here I was making 20, 25 an hour. I thought I'd made it. I didn't need anything else.
How young brains think.
You know, and I'd spend all my days just snowboarding or just, you know, just doing incredibly like ludicrous things when I should have been saving money. But who cares?
You're 20 though.
That's right. That's right. But when I noticed that things were actually off to a bad start, and when I noticed that things were definitely in need of a shift, is when I met my wife in 2002, and we were married in 2003 with a kid on the way. She had told me, like, look, I think this attitude that you have was charming to begin with. However, I don't necessarily want the carefree JD raising my kids. You know, I'm not doing this thing with an addict in my house. I didn't sign up for this. You need to change. And I went back to my old church ways. I was like, well, if you don't want to see it, I'm going to hide it. You know, that's all there was to it.
I think that's pretty common.
I'm finding out.
Yeah, I think that's you know, I think it is. It's like it's so hard. I was talking with someone else that, you know, is dating someone who's normal person, but they go out and he's like, you know, I think they're lying about how much they drink because he said, well, guess how much they said they drank.
If you
two beers,
well,
the old two, the number two,
if you ever have to say it, if you've counted it, if you ever have to say how much,
but only two. I've said only two for so many things.
That's all I ever drank, Pete. Was only two.
Yeah, and so, but we were laughing about it, and, you know, it ended up being more. But I was like, you know, I think whenever you're doing, it's easy. You just don't want even a person like that that's not doing anything bad, but they're around someone that doesn't drink. Yeah. It's like you end up hiding it. If you're not getting over, you just don't want to get your chops busted. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I had very few people that I actually drank openly around. And they were like cretins. Looking back, they were like such low lifes. You know? But it's because we were probably all in the same headspace. You know, we didn't want, I would drink just two. I'd drink two with you. I'd go drink two with them. By the time I'd had my two with everybody, I'd come home and have my two in front of my wife. So she knew I just had two.
Did you do the, if you're going out to dinner, did you ever do the slam a bunch?
That's the pregame. Oh, yeah.
But without anyone knowing. So it's like,
sure.
When you have your glasses of wine, you're like but you still have more than everybody else at the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my move.
The excuse too was like, wow, JD, why are you slumped over? Like, you've only had one glass of wine. Man, that's powerful stuff. That's good wine. I don't know if I can actually, you know.
Tough day at work.
Oh, man.
Did legs today.
That's funny, man. And those are the lies, you know.
I'm just laughing. I'm thinking of all of them. You're like, I don't know.
We think we have each other fooled when we're doing that kind of stuff. You know, I don't even have myself fooled at that point.
Dude, I remember going to a movie. Did you ever see the one? It's like a famous alcoholic movie with Denzel Washington when he's like the pilot.
Flight. Killer movie.
I got hammered before going.
Oh, me too.
And met my girlfriend there, and I fell asleep in the movie. So I was watching it, and I was like, it was like so ironic. I think the person was just so disgusted by that point in time.
You got to stick it out to the end, Pete. You may have had a transformation before your time.
I woke up. I mean, I got woken up.
I remember watching that movie, having the exact same epiphany. Like, this is so ironic that here I am, like watching this man's life unfold while I'm literally crashing my.
I thought it was about a fun party movie. Like it was a pilot.
He had a good time.
I thought he's having a blast. Little did I know later on that that's called a warning sign.
That is what we call a warning.
Yeah, exactly. So you got married. You're about to have a kid on the way. And So, does it escalate? Like take off or?
I could really get into a lot of the deep dark.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it out there, but. What I can say is that every line that I had drawn for myself that I said I wasn't going to do became closer and closer to where I just overstepped that boundary. And then I'd look back the next day and be like, well, that was nothing. Why did I say I wasn't going to do that? And so as it went, I started doing things, that I swore I'd never do to get the stuff that I wanted to get. And yeah, you'd mentioned pharmaceuticals. I did pick up that habit for about 3 to 4 years, and it was innocent because I actually went into my dad's practice and told him that I needed help.
The best way, man.
For sure. I was a
prescription. It means it's not bad.
For sure. And he
been there too.
He hooked me up with his partner, and what they identified as my X factor, the reason that I wanted to drink so badly, wasn't that I was an alcoholic.
No.
It was that I had poor attention span. So
ADD
it was, my friend.
That's a beautiful combo.
My goodness. The warning was there on the label. Don't take this medicine while drinking. But
why? Because you're going to have a lot of fun.
don't take it. That's
so you can drink more.
Yeah, they didn't tell you like it intensifies for up to 4 to 6 hours.
You could stay up later.
Yeah.
And you become the most interesting person to yourself in the room.
For sure. I could be in a room with nobody and I would be the most,
I'm getting embarrassed thinking of conversations I had with it. Oh my gosh. It's so humiliating. I have these like Adderall drinking days that I like go back and I'm like, oh my gosh. I remember giving a lecture at like for a sales. I was giving a sales motivational training to my sales team. And I was like, the sun was like beating on me and I was sweating because of the Adderall and the sun. And I'm already turned red and my armpits were, and I was like, almost like Hitlering it. Like, but I was like, yeah. And then my buddy was like, you're yelling. You're like, so I was like, it's so embarrassing.
Trying to form a militia is what I'm doing.
Thinking that I'm like on point, that I'm a maniac.
Well, and so actually around that time, my career had kind of gotten to a point. This is the thing, is that I never had like actual job jeopardy because of that. I have always been able to work myself up to a place of management and trust, within these companies that I've worked for. I'm only on my 3rd professional company that I've worked with in more than 20 years. The other 2 are back in Colorado.
Sure.
So, but yeah, the Adderall thing, man. I at the end of that whole spree, I had 2 different doctors out of my dad's office writing prescriptions that they didn't know about. And when I got caught, it was such shame on my dad because I was in there for everything. I was like, man, I can't sleep. Okay, cool. Well, here's something for that. I've got anxiety. Oh, cool. Well, here's something for anxiety. Before you know it, I'm in there telling them what I've got, man, I don't think you understand. I've got bipolar. I've got this. I got blah, blah, blah. And after a while, they're looking at all this stuff. They're like, with the amount of lithium that you're taking, the Xanax that you're prescribed, the 2 different medications, the SSRI inhibitors, or whatever that you're on, plus the painkillers for intermittent shoulder pain and all the Adderall, we know what's wrong with you.
You threw the shoulder pain. You had the shoulder pain too.
Of course I had shoulder pain. Who doesn't have shoulder pain when you have all that going on?
Yeah, you got to come down, man.
For sure. So they did the old nasal swab, and they were like, well, what's all this pink powder in your nose? And that's when it was like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, we think we know what's wrong with you. And I remember the shame that brought my dad, having his son, like, just kind of like abused the privilege of being a doctor's kid. Um, I'm not going to say that my downfall was made public, but definitely enough people in that small community knew about it at that point that my dad was just horrified. And at this point, he'd actually sobered up. He sobered up probably 6 or 7 years prior.
That's really
because
cool.
my sister was getting married in the Mormon temple, and he wanted to be worthy to walk her down the aisle and to be there, be present. And I was like, how did you do that? Like, because my dad, he was a partier, man. This dude is known for his pale Bloody Marys, man. Like vodka up to there, splashing.
I didn't know what that was. I was
Bro.
like, that's cool.
It's the real deal. But he got rid of all that. And that's when he was able to offer me a little bit of help. He told me I'm fired from his practice. I can't come back as a patient anymore, which I totally understood. I was pissed.
Sure.
I understood. I got it. He offered me one last chance. He's like, there is a meeting. I can take you to a meeting, which is a 12-step program.
Did he do 12 steps or no?
Nope.
Just knew about
He
it.
sobered up on his own, which
Gotcha.
is crazy.
Yeah, there's different strokes for different folks.
Well, and like I said, he did it for the church reasons for my sister. So there's a good chance that probably played a lot into it. I do recall around that time, he and my mom were still very heavily involved in their church, which is a great thing. They have that sense of community. But I just remember seeing like the hurt on their face. Here I am, I'm probably 28, 29. Have two beautiful young children. At the time, they were like 3 and 5. My daughters were still very young, impressionable. Mm-hmm. And I realized at that point, they had witnessed everything in my home that I had witnessed as a younger man. Mm-hmm. And they cried themselves to sleep, and my wife was beside herself, and I just thought for a moment that, man, this is wrong. Mm-hmm. He took me to a place called the Alano Club, which was a 12-step room. And, I heard what I heard in that meeting, but I was intoxicated when I walked in there, I took 2 Xanax and pounded a pint of vodka in 20 minutes when he said he was coming to pick me up. And so by the time I stumbled through that door, I was in no shape to receive any type of message, and what I would have heard would have been all the wrong stuff anyways.
You must have been a sight.
Dude, I was just wanting to get back out to the truck and go the hell home. There was nothing in there for me, And I made everyone know, and that was the whole thing with AA the first time. I was like, look, I did it. You can't tell me I didn't try, and that drove me to a state of hopelessness because I was like, man, really, if AA doesn't help,
work, yeah.
The doctors don't help, the church was no help, I was like, I'm doomed. I'm doomed, and at that point, my job was starting to pick up a little bit. They were catching on to some of these misses. I was calling in a lot more often. When I was there, I was probably coming down off of some heavy duty benders or, throwing up half the time. I mean, I was just a mess at work.
The thing that gets confusing about all this stuff, though, with a lot of it, is there is still functionality, and especially different cities. We know a lot of, we're in professions. And it's like, and honestly, in 2025, there's a lot of people on different stuff, and we know it. But they're able to maintain and do work. So that's like it's one of those things that like kind of fakes you out that you're not really. Well, I still have a job. I still got this going. And there's people with like a lot of heavy stuff, but they could still somehow. I'm blown away.
Yep.
And so like the correlations, all these things. But for me personally, it gave me an excuse for years. Well, I'm still doing good at this. I'm still doing good. I still got this.
Well, you are until you're not.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's when it all came crashing down. Around that time is when, the housing market was about ready to give out. We had already consolidated a bunch of stuff into our mortgage. Mm-hmm. And I was in job jeopardy to the point to where I was not getting an increase that year. And my wife's business closed down. And all of a sudden I find myself facing a foreclosure.
2008.
Yeah,
rough.
And I didn't take it as hard as I should have. I blamed everything but the alcohol at that point. But the fact of the matter is, I was homeless. I just lost the family home because I had gone through all of my savings. We had 2 vehicles repossessed, and I found myself living in the same apartment building that I'd lived in, 8 years prior when my wife and I had actually met. And I just felt like such a loser,
Yeah.
And so I was just scrambling to maintain any type of just civil behavior,
little dignity.
I just wanted something to go on to reassure myself and others that I was worth, looking after still. But the problem is that those people that I needed to impress were not impressed by me. I had already wasted all the trust that my wife had ever extended to somebody like me. Because, like I said, 6 years prior, she had said, I don't want to do this thing with an active alcoholic. And instead of getting better and taking the cue, I got so much worse. And I drug her down with me to a level that is, a lot of people would say unforgivable. I'm still floored to this day that here we are in 2025, that I've got a marriage as strong as I do to the woman who stuck beside me that whole time. That's
so
crazy.
Well, so like as that's going down, I mean, and the one thing, not an excuse for you or anything else, like in '08, because I went through that as well.
Yeah.
And I almost gave up, let's just say surrendered at that moment in time in my life. But it was like the excuse then was there were so many people going through it. So I was like, well, it's not because of this that I'm going through this. Because there was a lot of people in a lot of pain at that time.
I'll bet.
For different, real estate. Florida it was crazy.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, maybe it was just a fluke, that this is happening and that. So like it gave me another out, so,
yeah.
I don't know if that was your thing, but like you're going through it, you're married, you got a couple kids, the financial pressures for a married man. I mean, for when you're married and have kids, money problems, it's hard. People say like there's so much more important things than money, but it is hard when you're having money problems and you have a family, and then your self-esteem and just that survival of taking care of these people. Yeah. That's hard, right? And then you have these answers of things that let you check out and get your brain, to feel like you can function as much as, and I've talked with other people too. This is interesting, even like with Adderall and different things. The problem that you have though also is what you feel like is your strength for work, which is getting you through work in these days that are tough.
The problem is the solution. Don't you dare say that that's the problem.
Yes, because it's like a double-edged sword. It's like what's keeping you at that moment in time. You're just hanging on by threads. You're going, so like it's rapidly going downhill.
Oh yeah,
is that right?
So what you had mentioned is that you gave yourself an excuse by looking at everyone else saying, "Oh, we're all going through it. We're all going through it." Had I not been so self-centered, I probably would have looked outside of my own world and realized that, yes, everyone else was experiencing these hardships too. But, at that time, oil fracking was a huge thing where I grew up. And there were still kids that I grew up with that did not go to college and did not do the same thing. That were doing 6 figures a year, buying these huge old $60,000 trucks and these nice $400,000 homes in a moment when I'm struggling. And I was just like so shame-filled to see what I had actually become in my hometown. And so I kept my head down. I didn't associate with much of anybody. From 2009 to 2012, my wife and I had a couple of separations, she just pretty much had enough of it. I didn't mention there was a brief stint in a jail cell, from some stuff that I did. And I copped some charges on that, and I was separated from my family for legal reasons. And again, I was the victim of circumstance. There was nothing that I did wrong other than, possibly guilty of having too good a time, and all that stuff started just really piling up on me. And there is no sickness like soul sickness, 100%. I was just in the depths of it. I did what we know now was considered a geographical cure. In 2012, I thought, okay, so I owed some guy about $500 on a deal that went south, and I was avoiding every phone call with him. I didn't have $500. I was juggling 3 payday loans at a time. I was paying off a Tuesday loan to make a Wednesday loan, and then a Friday loan that had to pay off the Tuesday loan. I was like $2,000 in debt at any given time, and I was trying to give my wife enough money to support the kids. And by the end of the day, every time I went to the ATM, it would cost me $45 because I had overdraft.
Here we go. And is your wife at this point in time keeping an eye on the bank account? Is your trust gone at this point in time, or you?
This was back before we actually had mobile access to it. So you actually either had to wait for the statement to come in the mail or go into the bank and actually ask them for the bank activity.
So you could buy some time?
For sure. I always had about a 5-day buffer before I knew that overdraft letter was going to come. And I was the king. Like we had checkbooks, right? So she would have them in sequence at the top of the heap. So she would know that check 6543 was the next one to come. Oh, I'd scoop a checkbook off the bottom of the box. So I had check 7,000 something in my possession.
Crafty,
For sure.
crafty move,
So,
veteran move.
So I'd go and I'd write these checks for, if you're going to go big, right? So here
you're already going to get in trouble. You're going to get in trouble for a little thing or a big thing.
I know that now. I was at the grocery store writing a check for $5 or $10 over. Okay. I'm already going to get slapped with this $35 overdraft fee. Why not just write it for $100 over? Make it the max amount. No, that's not my style, man. I just need enough for today. Okay.
Then it's like, I didn't really mean to.
Exactly. But in 2012, we decided that all my problems rest in Western Colorado. That's where everything was, all of it was pretty much origined there in Colorado. I needed to get out of Colorado. My wife's family has lived in Florida since 2000, maybe even earlier than that, late 90s. So I decided, let's make the move. Let's go to Florida. Let's see your family. You've always said that you'd be happier on the coast anyways. Let's get to where your family's at, and I think that things will be better. I realized
Hurricane JD coming to town.
I was really kept to myself at that point. I didn't think much of myself. I didn't put myself out there a whole lot. I didn't want a bigger or better job opportunity. I just wanted to survive, and I took whatever measly opportunity I could. I left the profession behind. I didn't want to be in the contracting profession that I had grown up in Colorado because I was intimidated by it, I didn't feel very good about myself, and I just wanted to be under a rock and left alone. So the longest stint that I had of dry period, from the time that I had actually started drinking to the time that I had that 4-day stint was approximately 17, 18 years. And on the 4-day drive down here from Colorado to Florida, I was able to stay away from alcohol for 4 solid days. And I always remember in the back of my mind, the old thing about like if you're trying to put down smoking, if you're trying to quit gambling or porn or whatever, if you can get past that 72-hour mark, chances are you got a fighting chance. Well, here I am with 96 hours under my belt. I'm like, I got this.
Easy.
Yeah. So we're sitting there at the dinner table at my in-laws' house, which is where we stayed for the first 3 months while we looked for a house. And I told my wife, hey, I need to go get some new toiletries and I need to do this and that. Can I have the debit card? And the look she shot me was like, I know what this is all about. And I was like, no, I promise. You can watch the bank activity. She didn't know that I had a couple bucks in quarters, that I had saved with me the whole time. So, of course, first thing I'm going to do is go scout out a liquor store and buy a small bottle or something. I'm no dummy. And I remember coming back to that house it was like July 2nd or something like that, 2012, already drunk for the first time in Florida, thinking this is where I die. Here we go again. I thought I was better, and it turns out I can't stink and quit. I cannot quit.
So you know at this point.
Oh, bro, there's no doubt.
So this is like the spot.
Oh, yeah. I knew that something had to change, because I walked through that door and I got looks from everybody. You see, up to this point, my mother-in-law knew what was going on with me in Colorado for the 9 years prior. I mean, she witnessed it on her own when she'd visit us. And my wife, of course, called her and told her all about it. And so she knew what kind of a person I was. I think it was really refreshing to see me show up sober at her house when we first arrived. And it was just devastating when I came in 2 hours later drunk again, and I let down everybody in that family. And that was pretty much the sequence of events. I felt like a letdown, including myself, and that's where I really felt the worst, is that I couldn't trust myself anymore. I couldn't trust you to say, I'm going to stay sober today. And I just stopped really even trying. I cared enough about my family. I didn't want anybody to go without, and I worked as hard as I could to make sure we had enough money, but it didn't bother me. My wife came into me one day and said, hey, I've got both of the kids on Medicaid now through the state, so at least they have insurance. I've signed us up for food stamps. We're going to be okay for a little bit. And I was like, what are you going to do that for? What do you think we are, poor people? Like, what's wrong with you, lady? Well, yeah, because the way that I'm living, we took a $800 a month room from some people that we knew that we lucked into. As well as anybody, there's no $800 room around here that's worth actually, that's worth looking at. I was barely getting by, and it was still everybody else's fault but mine, you know? And I couldn't get over that, because on the outside, I knew how great of a person I was or could be, and I carried that around.
Did you have a moment? I mean, I'm hearing your story and I'm relating to it. I know those times, even the years are they hit home a lot for me, and it's tough years. And but did you have a moment like, God, I think I'm like feeling it right now that like, you're just like, it's almost like a dream.
Yeah.
You're like a bad dream.
Yes.
That you're like, I can't, like you hit home with a couple things you said to me that I just really related to. Was you cross lines.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do this. This one, if I do this, I'll stop. If I do this, that'll never happen. Like I remember I'll never drink alone. I remember that being one of them. I remember I would never drink and drive.
I'll never drink in the morning.
With this, I mean, all those things. And then all of a sudden I just remember being there. I can't believe this is my life. I can't believe it was almost like a out of body experience. And you said also the other one that you hit home with, for me, hit home, and it's like, it's still hard. It's not hard. I've like dealt with it, and and I've apologized, and I think about it a lot, but it was like my kids crying.
Yeah.
And I grew up not to bash my parents or anything else, but I remember being like, can't you just stop for us? For like, why do you have to do it? It just didn't make sense as a kid. And then I remember being like, I can't believe I am this person. And I hit it a different way. And I did things different because I was overcompensating. I was always trying to act more friendly if I was drinking around my family and kids. But it's like, it was the same thing, same BS, and couldn't be trusted. And all of a sudden I was not trusted. And I was such a trustworthy person. And then I was like, couldn't even trust myself.
Yeah, that's just it. I always, like I said before, I'd always worked myself into a position of higher management and trust within every company I've worked for. Mm-hmm. And to look at myself here in St. Augustine, Florida, with I couldn't even work for a company that was giving me all the grace in the world. So I went out on my own and just got my own contractor's license, my own insurance, and was pretty much just doing my own thing for a little bit. They were gracious enough to throw me jobs and actually keep me employed 40 hours a week as a 1099 guy, but I was a liability to that company 100%. Because of the way that I was conducting myself on their projects. But the lack of trust that I had in myself, and just when you'd said like the kids crying, all that, the time that it really hit me that this is it, this is the end, this is no longer fun, was when my youngest daughter, who was I want to say probably about 12 or 13 at the time, she was my best friend for sure. I mean, we had such a good time. We would ride our skateboards to the beach, we'd go swimming, and she knows that a lot of that was just an excuse for me to go out and drink without being scrutinized by my wife, because I would always carry my little cooler with me, and they would always come back empty every single time. Or I'd always sneak off into the bushes with my little one hitter and like, hey, I just got to go check out this turtle real quick. I'll be right back. Don't come over and see me, But what happened was my wife started questioning both my kids. What did Dad do?
Then you're putting them in between you and everything else. It's like all the stereotypes.
So the one time that it really hit me is when I was like, hey, do you want to go to the store with me? I'll buy you something. She's like, nope, I don't want to go, Dad. I was like, what? You love the store. And my wife said, why do you need to go to the store? I was like, I was just going to get stuff, for dinner, blah, 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 just whatever BS I could actually come up with. She's like, you don't need to go to the store, and she doesn't need to go with you. And I looked at her, I was like, you don't want to go? She's like, sure don't, Dad. And I was like, why? And my wife said, because you make her lie. You make her lie to me, and she doesn't like that. And I was like, oh man, like, how do you know? She's like, she told me, like she said that.
Yeah.
I felt horrible. Around this same time, we were having some issues in the house that we were renting. The plumbing was going out, and we were about 6 weeks without a hot water heater. And my wife had pretty much packed her bags as a to-go bag, because she was staying at her grandmother's house down the street and taking the girls there, so they at least had a place to crash. But she pretty much told me one night, this is it. Like, my bags are packed pretty much for the long haul. We need to find a way to make this work, because it's not working anymore, and the kids and I are leaving.
Wow.
And that just crushed me.
Is that the moment that you realized that someone
absolutely.
change.
Absolutely. I mean, that was like the turning point for me, because I had realized that all this damage that I'd done to my own body, to my own, finances or whatever else, had now projected onto everybody else in my family. And they no longer trusted me, and I was no longer fun to be around, and I had started dragging people down to my level.
Yeah.
I mean, the fights projected from just my wife and I to now the kids were bickering over stuff. My wife was bickering with the kids. And I would just come into a house that had already been in turmoil. And, when you're in active alcoholism, all you want to do is drink to get rid of that noise. And, that's just like throwing kerosene on the fire. That didn't help anything.
Yeah.
So
it's wild. You said something back, like it works till it doesn't work. And like, I remember my moment, like at the end and just being like, I used to be funny, drunk when I was in my 20s, and it was funny and everyone laughed and, oh, you did this stupid, you passed out, like whatever. And then I had kids and I'm in my early 40s and I was just like, this isn't funny. It's almost like the guy at the club who's like in his Dockers and stuff, but still he's trying to act young, whatever. And you're like, dude, hang it up.
But the members only jacket.
Yeah, you're like, but I remember being like, this isn't cute anymore. There's nothing cute. There's nothing funny about it. There's nothing. This is irresponsible. This is and it's sad. It's actually pretty sad.
It's sad to witness.
Yeah.
Sad to witness, sad to participate in,
really sad to be it. Yeah.
So that was the turning point. What happened was on July, I want to say it was like July 20th, 2019. My wife sent me a text message at 5:00 in the morning that just said, I hope you meant what you said yesterday. You need to go to a meeting. And I was like, oh man, what did I say yesterday? What did I do?
Marriage counseling?
Why are you texting me from the next room? And I realized the text was from the night before. I just passed out, didn't realize it. I went into another 12-step room for the first time in about 11 years or so. And I heard everything that I needed to hear that morning. I mean, I was just so inclined to everything everyone said because, I was so out of touch with God. In the 12-step rooms, we call it our higher power. We call it spirituality. Sure. We call it whatever it needs to be for somebody who's just not in a way to believe. But the problem is, I never stopped believing in God. I just thought God stopped believing in me. And what I found that morning was that God had been there the entire time waiting for me to come back. It was like the prodigal son return moment,
Or like that footprints prayer.
For sure. I mean, because I was in complete defiance of God because my whole life up to that point was like, why is God letting this happen if he's such a great and powerful God? Why is God letting my bishop demote me from future Mormon missionary back down to 3 and 4-year-olds? Why is God letting that take place?
Do you think there's a correlation? Again, this is like an aha moment, but very obvious. And I think I've thought about it. I've been taught this, but it's like from victim, when you're in it, somehow you just become this victim of the finger point. Even if you know it, you're still like, if they didn't do this, I had a lot of times like where like I straightened up my act and everything, but then like something would go wrong with the relationship or something would go wrong with someone else. I was like, well, you know what? I would have kept going, but you guys did this.
Yeah.
And nobody else changed. I mean, gosh, that's like a
victim will never recover. Victim will
like
never
God
recover.
And like being like, well, God, you shouldn't have let them. You're like,
yep.
And then when you get your sanity back, you're like, oh, God didn't do any of this to me.
Well, they teach you a little bit about taking accountability for those actions.
Yeah.
And that's something I was never great at. I was good at taking credit for successes, but I was never good at taking accountability for those losses, and it was always somebody else's problem. Again, in 2008, when I lost my home, well, it's Wells Fargo's fault, because they shouldn't have put this thing on a short sale notice and try to foreclose on me, didn't they?
Shouldn't have given you the loan for that. That free money. Correct. If they knew it was going to go downhill.
It was always somebody else's problem. But, coming into a place where I was just so accepting, like that old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. The teacher had been there the whole time.
Did you have what they call the gift of desperation?
I think I was willing to try anything that was offered to me, for sure, And I love that acronym because that's the GOD acronym. If you can't find God, at least find the gift of desperation.
I have a lot of respect for younger people, or it could be older people, but I think of younger people in their 20s and stuff like that still haven't lost everything, and they've had an incident or two, and they choose to do it before they hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
I have, because I almost did. Like, I was super into personal development. I was super into sales. I was like, I got this. I'm going to run races. I'm going to do this. And I thought I had it. And because I did not have the gift of desperation.
Yeah, you hadn't had enough losses.
I hadn't. But there are people that are able to do it the right way and see it coming, and you know, their parent, they know it's like, I can't do this. This is messed up. And I give them so much credit because I had what you had, where it was like,
you know, there's got to be a ratio. I have a high threshold for pain.
Yeah.
And that's emotional and physical pain. I can tolerate a lot. And so I think the people, I'm not going to say anybody's story, but if anybody's like in their late teens, early 20s, and they decide that they got to give it up, and they go and they get sober and they redeem themselves and they turn their lives around because of something like, you know, I lost a relationship and that was the catalyst for my recovery. I had to do it because I don't ever want to feel that pain again. Good for them. Guess what? I lost 3 or 4 great relationships. I lost, you know, a college opportunity. I lost a house. I lost the trust of my wife, and none of that was enough for me to quit. You know, they say that the bottom is when you quit digging. Problem is, I had too damn sharp a shovel. You know, I was all over that ditch.
Yeah. So you start turning around and everything, and
yeah, you know, I did the unthinkable about 3 days into going to these AA meetings. I did something I thought I had pretty much worn out, and that was talk to God again. And it was different. It wasn't like, you know, get me out of this struggle again. At that point, it became something more like, give me the strength, you know, please reintroduce yourself to me and show me where I can do better for you. And it stopped being so self-serving. And I think that, you know, really, if I had to actually sum up what redemption has meant to me in my life, the comeback is that I no longer serve myself, because I was given this this vision of other people also being affected by what I do or don't do. And I realized that I needed to regain the head of my house. I was almost 40 years old, and I really hadn't treated my family like they meant the world to me. And they knew that they did, but how do you express that when you're, you know, wallowing around in addiction all the time?
Yeah, it is the other. There's so many truthisms and all the sayings and stuff, but it is a family disease. Like everybody's affected. Everyone starts playing a role. Everybody has their act outs, and the children usually become the adult, and
they had to.
All this other stuff. The codependent, like all these things. And the great thing is you do recover, but there's a lot of unwinding and stuff as you're going through it. Yeah, there really is.
Well, I would love to say, you know, so this was 2019. I'd love to say that my world turned around right then and there. You know, the reality is I still had to build back a lot of this trust with my wife. I still had to mend some relationships with my children and some of the other family members around me. And here I am. Now I don't live in Colorado where my support system's at.
Sure.
I'm with my wife's family. And those are the people who probably loathe me the most, you know? So I had a little bit of a struggle in the first year or two of this little bit of a journey. There was a time in there when I truthfully thought, okay, it's been about 365 days since I drank. Maybe drinking wasn't my problem. Why is everything still so hard for me? You know, why is the world not coming back to me the way that I thought it would? Because I honestly always had myself fooled to think that the drinking was my problem. It wasn't my problem. You know, my problem was my disconnect with reality, because I was still ego driven, you know. It takes a full surrender to actually realize what God is able to do in your life.
You know, it's interesting too, in my walk, maybe not exactly the same as yours, but in my walk, when I really, because I had the same exact thing. I'm like, wait a second, I'm doing it. Why am I still getting why are you still busting my chops? Why are you like, I'm better. Like, you don't even get it. Yeah. Like, I'm healed.
Don't you know how hard
like how hard? Yeah, I'm not. And I remember being like, I didn't get sober to get yelled at, you know, like all these things. You got to see like how hard I'm working.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when I stopped doing it, and you learn lessons. And the beauty is watching people that have walked, that show you the path to walk. and the things, and they warn you the pitfalls are pretty obvious that are going to happen. Not everything's the exact same, but there's some patterns.
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
Oh, it's huge, because I'm sitting there, I'm looking back as you're talking. It's funny because we're very linked in our times and everything, and knowing it and watching you. And but I was like, it was almost like when I internalized it, I'm not giving up on quitting no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to stick this out, throw it at me. I'm not doing this. It was like everything softened up on me on the outside. Like after I took it was almost like some jabs test to see if I was going to fall, by the people. Am I going to let them down again? Because they heard the lies for so many years. They heard it. Like
those people are probably waiting for your inevitable demise. They're waiting for you to fall.
And when they can see the humbleness, for me was when I stopped talking about that I'm doing this and let my actions speak, and I didn't expect anything in return. And genuinely didn't, because I was told to not to. I didn't come up with that on my own. It wasn't like this whole thing. It was like the people started trying, and it gave room to be able to restore. It was like God gave room for these things to work, to do it. And was that for you as well?
I think so. And actually you touched on something real important. You said watching other people do this and taking suggestions, not my strong suits. I'm a very independent, stubborn, hard-headed type of person that if it's not my way and I didn't think of it, it's not going to work. Hence discounting AA for the first time in 2009, because I was like, it's not going to work. Look, I went to a meeting. Look at me. Am I sober? No, didn't work. But finally, when you actually realize that someone else has something to offer, you just have to be willing to ask for that help. Not my strong suit. I'm a man. I'm not like the alpha male, but damn it, dude, I like to be right, and I like to take credit for good things. I don't want to have to humble myself to say, will you please show me how to do this?
Yeah.
Can you please? But I found myself actually asking for help. It was harder for me to actually seek out sponsorship in a 12-step program than it was to ask a girl to a Valentine's dance or something like that. I felt so weak at that point. But I did it because it was suggested of me over and over that if you're going to do this, you're not going to make it alone. Only a fool sponsors himself, is what I heard.
So as you're going through it, tell us about someone like, I know, again, it's like it would be injustice just talking about all the downfall to see what you're doing now with your life and like the different highlights.
Yeah, so that's where I really kind of get fired up, is because I've reintroduced a spirituality in my life that is unlike anything else I've ever had. I come to find that, like I said, God had never abandoned me. I walked away from that relationship a long time ago. And when I came back to that relationship 20 some odd years later, I brought with me a world of experience and appreciation for the way things could be. I don't ever want to see that again. And I think I humble myself to God every single morning when I tell him how grateful I am for the day before and ask for help for one more day. Mm-hmm. The things that I've been able to accomplish in this journey have been unparalleled to anything I could have ever imagined. I mean, the financial thing, we have a slogan in the program that, fear of economical insecurity will leave us. I'm not saying that I'm killing it, but I don't worry about how I'm going to get by day to day. For me, and, growing up without money and then losing all the money in my 20s, I had just become accustomed to just, kind of just being a bozo. I didn't have money, and I didn't care about money. I didn't care about how that looked. We did what we could to survive, but not having to actually worry about, where my next meal is coming from or how I'm going to feed my family. And better yet, being able to give somebody else, some of my resources because I see people in need and serve others, just humbling myself to that type of, I guess, regifting has been so influential on who I like to think I'm becoming.
Yeah. And you've been married how many years now?
At this point, we are 22 years, married in 2003.
So like the last 6 years, how has I've never, and we talk about a lot of stuff. We're there for each other on different things, but you don't have like a lot of negative things to say. Like and usually it's like, I mean, it's not someone complain, it isn't. You have a good relationship.
Yeah.
You have I mean, that's like just to restore that.
I stopped trying to control my wife. It's not very, I'm not going to say that the church that I grew up in promotes patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
Some people kind of would think that otherwise, but they definitely have a male dominant kind of stereotype in that church. And I realized that my wife is not going to be my subject at all. I've allowed her to actually express herself individually and to find her own spirituality. And when I say I allowed her to, it means I didn't belittle her for trying, you know. She steps outside the lines often, and I encourage that because I think it's so beautiful that now she has the freedom that she doesn't have to worry about a derelict husband back at home that's spending all the money or making a mess of things or harming the children or drinking or driving or whatever. She actually has the time that she's afforded to go out and do these things. And when she comes home, I mean, the thing that I'm most proud of is that she's able to travel, which is what she loves to do. You know, she's been on mother-daughter trips over to Europe, to the Northeast, out west. I mean, just all sorts of really spiritual connections to the earth. And every time she comes back, it's always with a renewed vigor for life. And that's like contagious for me.
Yeah, that's all. And then like with your children and stuff, do you think some of your, let's say your low moments have become your strengths?
We laugh about it now, you know. I've been able
and to be able to relate with your kids and tell them the truth, not the fear mongering that we grew up with. Not saying that my parents fear I don't want to project that on them either, but just the culture, the way the culture was.
Yeah. You know, my oldest daughter, God bless her, just doesn't care for what alcohol does. She's tried it. She's able to drink. She's old enough, you know, and she's blessed us with my first grandson, which is fantastic. She realizes that her priorities are just not that. She'll sip on a Prosecco at an event, and that's it. You know, it won't do anything for her.
Lucky her.
So I don't have to have those talks with her. My youngest daughter, who I said, again, was kind of my best friend, you know, I think that she has now kind of turned the tables on me. And the talks that we are able to have, the deep down talks about the lifestyle that I was living, has really made sense in her life, because not only has she seen it play out in real time in her family, but she's also kind of dabbled a little bit here and there. And when she comes home just broken with some of the experiences that she's had, I'm able to relate to her on a level that's like, hey, you know, I get you. I understand you. You are seen. You're validated.
Yeah, I know you as a father, and you're an awesome dad, and you're so there for them, and you love. And it's not even, but it's not even like you're trying to do it. There's no trying. You enjoy your family, you enjoy your wife. You light up thinking about it, and that's so. I think if you got nothing else out of this, if you were unemployed but you restored your family, and you even have a relationship with your kids in the way you're there with them, that alone would be worth its weight in gold.
Well, and so, you know, right now we're actually at a weird place where, as to my wife is potentially stepping down from her position out there in the retail world, and I am going to be back down as the sole bread earner, and we're bringing another grandson home with my daughter. And so because of that, I'm looking at a lot of financial sacrifices that are to be made, and none of that stresses me out.
No, well, and I also know your work now. The funny thing is, I never, you know, I'm hearing about all you're hard on yourself, and you go back and the thing, you're pretty, you know, you're you know, like not getting picked for the team and stuff. It's funny seeing you because, like, I know 3 years of your life, you're one of the best family guys I know, and you fight for your family. You do. I know the relationships restored, even with your siblings and, you know, family. You're there for everybody, and you're access for everybody you're there for. You know, you hung a fan for me last week, which is like a life set. But, you know, and then I know your work, I know your work ethic, and I know what people think about you in the community and stuff.
It's the gift of service is what that is, you know?
Yeah. But even like the work thing, you're a professional, and you're top notch, and people count on you, and you do some major projects and stuff like that. And you're the go-to person. Another one that's like, if that was the only thing that came out of it, you know, you lost your family or whatever, but you're now stable to be able to provide. That would be a miracle.
Hey, there's honestly too many blessings to count. I mean, this is where it gets fun, is because we could go on all night long talking about how much more opportunity is still out there. And that's why, you know, in the very beginning of this episode, you'd said, you know, your ongoing redemption story. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring.
Exactly.
But I do know that it's going to be another opportunity. And that's what's beautiful about all of this.
And then on top of it, like, I think of like, I chuckled at you saying that you didn't get picked for the teams, and you thought that, like, you're a fit guy. Like, you do races now, you do all these events, and like, you're like planning the next thing. And, you took a little bit of break to help out. You got busy with work and everything, but you're back, running and fit and going at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, that's like a whole other world too. I'm sure you didn't do that 6 years ago.
No. The routine that I like to get myself stuck into now, it's a little strenuous, on me and on my family. And that's why I opted for the 4:30 and 5 o'clock a.m. start, is because nobody wants to hear me up huffing and puffing that early in the morning. So I just do it before they all get up.
You just do it before they get up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I mean, that's like, you're in your mid 40s. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's part of that's part of the routine that actually kind of keeps me on this path, knowing that it's not just for me. I've got 2 grandsons, one here, one on the way. I don't want to be, at an age where I'm like, mid 50s and I can barely get up off the couch. And it's hanging out with guys like you and some of the guys that we run around with that are all like, in the same mindset. I've got a few other acquaintances that are just not so lucky that, you can tell it's a real struggle for them to get up and out. And you got to think, there's something there that's keeping you sedentary. Like, it's not because you don't want to or you can't. It's because you're just not motivated to do something for yourself.
Yeah, but you've like restored, you have self-pride. You have that self-esteem again, the real self-esteem, because you did something, you overcame it.
Now, I can guarantee if I went back to that ball field and I swung that bat against those same 14-year-olds today,
you beat the 14-year-olds?
Still strike out. I'm horrible at sports.
Well,
but I'd have fun.
But not endurance sports, you're not.
I'd have fun doing it.
Yeah. The other one too is like I love some miracles in this. There is, hey man, you either believe there's a higher power or not, and you either believe in miracles or not. And that's, teach your own. I think when we surrender and something gets removed from us, we know there's something instantly, there's something bigger than ourselves out there. One of the things I admire about you, and it always rings true in my head, like you have 2 things I hear from you a lot. Like, it's pause, pray, pause, proceed. Pause, pray, proceed. The 3 Ps. And that's changed your life in a lot of areas. Keeps you out of trouble, right?
Yeah. That just institutes a little bit of time, I think, for my higher power to kind of tell me what you're about to say is not necessary to be said. It's the horsemen or the gatekeepers of the mouth, I should say. Is what I'm about to say kind? Is what I'm about to say necessary? Is what I'm about to say needed to be said by me?
And I'm not going to say, because I don't know every little thing about you, but I know some things. It's also honesty has become, like rigorous honesty. Yeah. And doing the next right thing. Just doing the next right thing, and keeps you in the present. Because I know the stresses you've gone through, but can you share, there's a financial story that you went back and covered.
Oh, yeah.
And like something happened. And I just love hearing that, because it's like so hopeful.
Yeah. So,
and it's happened to me in different areas too. It's like, it's crazy. And I have to remember this all the time, because there's so many times I'm going to fall back on my old, well, I could do this, but I can't do it right now. It's not going to work this time, or.
So here's where it's super important to just have faith. And I'll give a little bit of credit to a sponsor in the program too. So if anyone's familiar with the 12-step program, one of the latter steps is making amends, and the financial amends are oftentimes the hardest ones to make. I believe that's probably the story you're referring to.
They're very hard to make.
I had hard but necessary. The last job that I left in Colorado was on less than desirable terms. I wronged them in many ways. I pocketed a lot of money. Some of it I paid back because I was caught, Some of it I knew I'd gotten away with it. And it wasn't like, I'm not talking tens of thousands. Over the course of the last couple of years of my drinking there, it was probably close to about $400 or $500, overall, that did not get paid back, that they just never found out about. We were on a trip out to Colorado about 3 years ago, and I had worked my tail off all up to that point to make sure we had enough cash in a jar that we did not have to fund this trip on credit cards. We were going to be self-supporting out on this trip. We were going to have a great time. My wife had this great itinerary. We were going to impress all my family. I mean, it was beautiful the way things were set out. And I told my sponsor I was going back, and he said, "Hey, you've still got some amends to make back home." I said, "Yeah, probably." And he said, "You going to do that?" I was like, "Well, I guess." He said, "Oh, that's not a question. Maybe I'm suggesting you do that." And I was like, "Okay, so what do you suggest?" He's like, "How much money do you think you owe so-and-so?" And I was like, you know the answer to this question. He's like, "I think it's time you maybe try and make that happen." I prayed about it. And the crazy thing is I went and I told my wife what we are going to have to do. You know, $400 is not a life-changing amount of money. But, you know, when you've only got a couple $1,000s that you're planning on spending on a vacation, $400 is a good chunk of that. And so I told my wife, and at this point in my sobriety, she was pretty familiar with what I was doing. And her whole thing was, I guess if that's what we need to do, that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I just, right there, first miracle number one, you know, did not cause a blow up in my house.
And you didn't lie to her and go around it either.
I absolutely had to do that.
Because I'm already thinking of sneaking that part.
Oh, sure. So I put the money in an envelope. I wrote a note to the employer on the off chance that I wouldn't run into him personally. I sealed that envelope and I took it to Colorado with me. And I just thought to myself, okay, so now we're down to about $1,500. No big deal. The car's been rented. The plane tickets have been purchased. This was just funny money. You know, it was just going out, having fun. I wasn't too butthurt about it. On my way out the door the next day to start my 10-day vacation, my boss came up to me and said, "Hey, you know, we were able to bonus out this project that you worked on 3 years ago. I don't think you were ever included in the final payout." And he handed me an envelope. He's like, "I want you to enjoy your vacation." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me!" Like, to me, like, this is God telling me, like, "Here's your $400 back, JD."
Yeah.
You know. And so I got out to my truck just as giddy as I could be, and I remember slicing open that envelope. I couldn't wait, and I looked at it and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" I mean, it was literally 4 times more than the money that I was actually giving away, you know, or giving back, making amends with. And, you know, I was just so floored that it had happened in that way, you know. Mm-hmm. And by the time I got home, I was just, you know, I told my wife, "Hey, I think we're going to be all right. In fact, you know, we're going to be better than all right on this trip." And she was, I think right then and there, that was like a big change for her, like to see how I put faith first and in something that I knew was the right thing to do. And it came back and blessed our family again. You know? Yeah.
And you did it willingly too, not begrudgingly. And it's like, that is a huge, huge thing, man. I mean, that is, I love those stories. And even it's a little, those God winks, as we call them, or, you know, those things are like, they keep you going and they keep you motivated to do the right things, you know, and they line you up. And coincidences, they call them, but they're not, there's something to it.
I would say, you know, that's the one thing that kind of keeps me focused, is because it reminds me that the things that I don't often want to do are the things necessary to be done.
Yeah.
You know, and I just, like you said, the next right thing, you know, it's a slogan that we kick around, do the next right thing. It's not just a way to get you out of your discomfort. It's actually a way to show your higher power that you have faith that you're going to do something in his name or her name that will ultimately, you know, show that you have that faith.
Yeah. So, JD, what would you say to someone that's still in a dark place?
Talk to somebody, you know, do yourself a favor and be willing to share yourself a little bit more vulnerably, and be willing to listen. If you get negative feedback or if you get criticism that you feel is undue, don't take it personally, you know, because ultimately if you choose the right people that want to see you get better and want to help you out of a dark place, it could be depression, in my case, addiction. It could be, you know, just financial loss or grief. Talk to somebody, you know, because this world is so much better with community, you know, and you'll find your purpose through community.
What would you say to, like, I think being honest, because like my past, even in the dark parts, there was some fun. There was a lot of stuff that I was hanging on to because it was still, you know, there was still some sprinkled in good, right? Yeah. And I was afraid to lose my friends, afraid to lose all that stuff. But for me, from going from before, because I think a lot of people also think if you go this new path, There is change involved, and it's painful. It's not all rainbows and sunshine. Looking back, I would do it all over again, and it was fun. It actually was pretty good and everything, even the tough times of it. But how much better is your life today than what it was? And are you hopeful about the future?
Absolutely. I've had hope restored. I know that the future is going to be peppered in with discomfort and it's going to have some hard times. I had this thought not too long ago that I don't like to relish in my successes and I don't like to dwell in my failures because everything at this point has been fleeting. I've been able to come back from just about everything that has happened to me at this point, good or bad, and still be right here. And it's my recognition of staying in the moment that makes me realize that, there's a lot more out there to experience. And I wouldn't know joy if I hadn't experienced some of the pain. And so I'm not going to say I welcome it. I'm by no means a martyr, but I definitely think that I've grown from those areas from those dark areas and from that pain into the person who appreciates what life actually is.
Yeah, and I also think it's really important. I can speak for myself, but I also can speak for JD. It hasn't been all. You've had some tough moments you've had a lot of challenges in your life since getting sober. It wasn't like you got sober and then it was just like you hit the lottery, work goes great, this happens, your kids line up, everything's perfect. Yeah. You've had some really.
I did all that, and then I ended up waking up.
Yeah,
because all that stuff is just what I dreamed of life in sobriety would be. But
so what does life on life's terms mean to you?
Life on life's terms, take it in stride. You're going to have to, whether you like it or not. One of our big prayers in the recovery program is the serenity prayer. And I have to rely on the fact that, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. That means people. That means things. That means situations and circumstances. That means life. I have to have an equanimity about that kind of stuff because I cannot allow all these distractions to tear me down and turn me into that selfish isolator. That's what got me into this problem. And it's exacerbated by booze for sure. But my biggest character defect was isolation and taking that out on people around me. So life on life's terms, I think this is a quote from you that I say often. Tide goes in, the tide goes out. Dude. You're just you're in a low tide season right now, my friend. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I do think that's important too because it's just how we handle things different, and gratitude. Oh, one other question because I know this is big with you, and then we'll go on my rapid fire for my wife's awesome questions. Right. But my one other one, what is because I love this guy. He always gets me in a good mood. Gratitude. What does that play? It's Thanksgiving time.
Oh, buddy, you better believe it.
Yeah.
If you can't find gratitude in the most simple of things, a day without gratitude is a lost day in my book. Again, coming from absolutely nothing, I was the victim mentality and I couldn't find a single thing to be thankful for or appreciate. Today, the fact that I'm able to get up, go to a job that wants me there, that, to come home to a family that's happy to see me, those are all great things. And that is in itself enough to be grateful for. Anybody would be grateful for that. But you know what? I'm grateful for fresh air. I'm grateful for eyesight, for ears. I'm grateful to be here doing this with you. These are things that I'm going to carry with me that builds up that wall against some of the outside influences that will sometimes tear you down because inevitably I'm going to leave here and get cut off by somebody wanting to see Nights of Lights. I'm going to
might drive near me. I drive people nuts.
That's just it. There's going to be something that can tear me down emotionally. And if I haven't built up enough gratitude in my life, all that's going to penetrate the walls and it's going to start crumbling down again. Gratitude is what keeps things uplifted.
And I think it's really important. This is another one. It's probably out there already, but it's a practice. It's like, did you have gratitude in the very beginning? Or did you have to work at it?
False gratitude.
Yeah. You fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And then it's that practice of writing it. We text each other every day with a group of people, and it's like I get so much gratitude from watching people in it.
Oh, for sure, that's addicting. It's addicting.
The other part that I do think about a group, we weren't even going to talk about we actually said that both of us like we're leaving a part of our life out of this because we don't know how to talk about it because it's kind of still taboo.
Stigma.
A little stigma of it. But like, you know, when you're witnessing and you're helping others, you get filled up with all the love and joy that you thought you got from drugs and like, you know, drugs or alcohol or anything. It could be gambling. It could be anything. You know, we could substitute for whatever. But when you're helping other people, and then the thing I get teary eyed now, you know, you get your emotions back, but I witness miracles every day, and that renews my hope in people. I know your story. I know it so well because we're about virtually the exact same time that we, you know, were. And I know your struggles every single moment. I know your struggles you're going, and you know mine. We know these things. Seeing each other grow, and we see how we carry ourselves outside with others and having that message of gratitude. You got to fake gratitude, you know, even if you have it, but it makes life so rich and enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know, I've had 2 deaths go through, one that was real drastic and everything, but like there still was gratitude in it. There still was God in it. There still was like a belonging and people that were there there was still so much beauty in it. And I don't know if I'd ever see that again, you know, in others. I witnessed my mom, I was with her, and just being able to serve her. There was so much. I mean, I'm so thankful for being the one that was there and sober and everything else like that. It's like, I don't know, that part, I think it's like, I could talk about gratitude for hours.
I think that's really important to really kind of focus on. You know, we could do a whole nother episode on that because, you know,
we should have our group in here a little.
without finding gratitude in even the smallest things, you know, you're never going to appreciate when the big things happen.
Yeah. And it's the small things, and they're more special. As I've gotten older and with my kids and everything, it's the smaller things that I'm more thankful for than actually big things.
Yeah.
It just is, and it makes my life, it's like my life gets easier to being that way. And more blessings come because I don't have a high bar for gratitude.
Perspective, man. It's
perspective. Yeah. And I do think also one other thing, and I noticed this in you as well, you know, you talked a lot about like the selfishness early on, and through osmosis, through service, through helping each other, it's almost a selfish helping people get better. The joy that you get to experience, like I used to be jealous of people if you shared something about work, I'd almost be like jealous. Now when you're thankful for it, I'm like, yeah, even if it's going, and then I'm like, I'm hopeful because I'm like, if that happened to him, it could happen to me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Do you have that too? Where it's like a whole other, you're connected to the world now. Now you're excited for everybody.
That's where I love actually reading the gratitudes of others, is because I know you guys outside of what we post, you know, and I know the struggles, and that's not what we're focused on, you know? And when I read something that is kind of like, wow, he just came out of that. Like, it brings me that little bit of, like you said, you know, that applause, that congratulations, you know, because it's like, man, all right, we're on the other side. And even if we're not, we know we're going to get there.
Yeah. I watch people, man. I get so excited I get probably more excited for them than they're probably. I don't even know. I love seeing them. I'm like a little kid watching these things. And knowing what can happen, and just knowing if they stick. And I see witness miracles every single day, from guys getting their license back to getting their families restored to getting a job, or just on their death at their health. Like, all these things.
Just to have a restored hope and faith.
Hope and like happy smiles on her face. Man, I've seen people like, I remember not having that smile on the face, and then be like, I want to laugh like these people.
Yeah.
Why are they insane? What are they doing? And then we're going long, but the other part I was going to say is, like, in the future, there's someone that we both look up to, and I got to have dinner with him and his wife, 40 years, you know, he's 40 years sober, older.
Yeah.
We laugh. I never knew you could have so much fun and joy and everything. And like, even older, like so young, and they're like in such good health and everything in their 80s, and just like, but it was so much fun. And it was like, they were so kind to my kids because they paid attention. It's like truly being a person that people want to be around, because it's not about them. And I'm not there yet, but I like saw that, and I was like, I want to be like that. Yeah. I don't want to be like the selfish super. I used to want to be like Motley Crue or the rock star or whatever else. Yeah. I don't want to be that way anymore.
No, there's not much fun in that lifestyle.
It's probably fun, but it's like, I don't want to be that way. It doesn't work for us. All right. So a little rapid fire reflection round, right?
All right.
All right. One word to describe your journey.
For me, miraculous.
Miraculous. I like that. I like that a lot. A quote or mantra you live by.
Quote, hurry, hurry has no blessing. You know, don't rush into any of this stuff. It'll come when it's time to come.
Attraction. It's so true.
Yep.
So true. Something you once thought you never do that you do now.
Wake up at 4:30 in the morning to talk to God.
Pray, man. I never
Pray and meditate. Yeah.
100. Like I hear some stuff and I'm like, I can't believe I said this.
Yep.
Or text a prayer to a guy. I'm like,
Who does that?
I'm still get turned red when I do it. I'm like, I can't believe this is me. And then what does peace look like to you now?
You know, peace looks like going home to a family where there's laughter in the home, where we're riffing on each other, but we're still in love with each other, where everyone feels safe and where they know that they're going to be taken care of. You know, that is something that was missing from my adolescent life, from my adult raising my family life, and is now so important to me, you know, to be able to give that comfort and that security to my family. That's peace.
Yeah. Happy home.
Happy home.
Happy home where people feel safe.
Yep.
It means a lot. It's I relate to that on both sides.
Yeah.
You know, and I like my goal is to be a house that the family wants to bring their friends over because they're proud of us.
We pride ourselves on being open and having everyone at home that wants to be there.
Not being an embarrassing parent or a fight about to break out.
Yep.
You know, or things like that. It means a lot. It means a lot to me. You know, so I relate with that one a lot.
Nice.
Well, JD, love this.
For sure, man. Love you. Appreciate you having me on. This is kind of a blast.
I know. It was fun. It was fun. Kind of like our conversations outside of here. Yeah. But
brought to you by Topo Chico.
Topo Chico and Chandel. Who have it. Hey, man. Love you.
Love you too, brother.